Hey, everybody, it's time for another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, rolling solo with you again today, as I have all week, as we dive into the North Carolina Tar Heels. Carolina opens its football season Saturday night in Charlotte against South Carolina. So we are peeling away the layers this week, getting you guys ready for Carolina's big opener. A really, really important game for Mack Brown's team and program, and of course for Drake Maye and his Heisman candidacy. The topic in this podcast, in this daily drop, is the Tar Heels vibe entering this game. But before I dive into that, very quickly, a reminder, this show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. It's the easiest place to play fantasy sports, underdogfantasy.com. Our esteemed Jacob Turner will have a note from them coming up a little bit later in this drop. What I'm going to do is give you 6 things that sort of grab me about this team as they enter the season. So I'm going to start off with great offense. This is the vibe. Great off season. This is the vibe. The day camp opened to the end of camp, the last time I was around the team in any capacity, the vibe has been outstanding. They had a really good spring. They had a really good summer of OTAs and some of the work that they were allowed to do with the coaches. And they came into the start of fall camp sprinting. I mean, we didn't really hear about install. I mean, they came in ready to roll. They got through the install quickly, and they got into things. They got after it. They had there was a pretty physical August, more physical, I think, than some past fall camps. And I think that helped this team a lot. In conjunction with that, this team has excellent leadership. Leadership reveals itself often in May, June, and July, more than it does during the season. A lot of times people think leadership is just that guy that gets on dudes in a game, or he's a fanny smacker, as I like to call it, or he's a dude that will bring someone up when they have a bad play or something like that. But so much of leadership is born, grown, and fortified in May, June, and July. And one of the reasons this club sprinted into fall camp is because it has excellent leadership. Drake Maye's become a terrific leader. British Brooks is an outstanding leader, guy everybody in that building respects tremendously. Corey Gaynor's a leader, sort of a quiet leader, but he's the dude that don't mess with Drake. You got to deal with me. You got to have guys like that. You got to have a lot of those dudes. You've also got Cedric Gray, who's a phenomenal leader. Kamen Rucker's a terrific leader. This club has really, really high-end leadership. It's not just a lot of good leaders. It has some great leaders, and that is so, so important. It also has a ton of talent. Look at TCU's roster last year. This club has similar talent. There's some people in the program that are saying, hey, why can't we be this year's TCU? They have enough playmakers. They have a ton on offense. Tight end room loaded with NFL guys. Wide receiver room, they got NFL guys. Quarterback could be the first pick in the draft. Offensive line could have a couple of NFL guys there, even though the line has struggled some. Look at the NFL. You got a few from the last couple of lines that are in the NFL right now. Up front defensively, lots of dudes that will be in NFL camps. Gray will be in the NFL. He'll be a first-round pick maybe. Rucker will be a fairly high pick. Huzzy's going to play in the NFL. Eccles might play in the NFL. So there's a lot of high-end talent, but not just NFL guys, a lot of really good college players on this roster. A lot of really good college players. They have talent and they have depth. There are only a couple spots in this team that don't have good depth. But they have a lot more depth they did a couple of years ago. They're going to be able to sustain and deal with injuries more now, the kind of attrition that always occurs, more now than they were able to a couple of years ago. So they had a great offseason. They have phenomenal leadership that led them into fall camp, and they're very talented. There are 3 other things as well that have struck me about this team over the last month, being around them as often as I have. I'll hit into those other 3 after this word from Underdog Fantasy.
I'm very excited to announce our new partnership with Underdog Fantasy. We decided to partner with Underdog because it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and it's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Now, Underdog Fantasy has a lot to offer, including their Pick'em game. And in Pick'em, you pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. It's so easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can 20x your money by going 5 for 5. They also have a Best Ball Mania. If you think you know football, definitely need to check this one out. This year's Best Ball Mania has $15 million in total prizes up for grabs, with the winner taking home $3 million. So sign up today with promo code HEAL and get your first deposit doubled by up to $100. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with promo code HEAL, HEEL, to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. You must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms do apply. And if you are concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Back to the show.
All right. So 3 more things that I want to hit on here. Why the 3 things I fixate on about what struck me the most about this team. I could probably give you 20 things, but I narrowed it down to 6. So I've already done the first 3. Here are the other 3. This club's got a lot of experience. If you look at the rotation guys on both sides of the ball, 11 of them are college graduates. 11 of them. The offensive line's bunch of old dudes. So they're experienced. They've been around. They've had a lot of success. There's some smart guys up front in that offensive line. The wide receiver room isn't as experienced, certainly at North Carolina, but at the time of this recording, we don't know yet what the Tez Walker situation is, but he had a great year last year, played a ton of football. Nate McCollum played a lot of football at Georgia Tech. He's experienced. J.J. Jones started last year. Gavin Walker's been on the field. Kobe Paysour had 3 big games last year filling in for Josh Downs. And there's so much talent in that room. Those guys are going to adapt very quickly. The tight end room has loads of experience. The running back room a year ago didn't have a lot of experience, but it has experience now. And it has older guys now, like British Brooks. You know, Elijah Green's an older guy. He got some experience last year. Marion Hampton learned a ton last year. George Pettaway in his second year of the program, not super experienced, but they're putting him in positions to take advantage of his skills, which is why he's been working a lot at slot. There's a collective chip on this team's shoulder, which is the 5th point I'm going to make here. That is interesting because there was a lot more hype going into the season 2 years ago, and that team sort of enveloped itself in that hype a little too much. And Mack Brown was worried. He said a bunch of times, look, I don't think we're that good. And they were preseason number 10, and that thing just died quickly in Blacksburg, and they never figured it out. They were also a club that was coming off an 8-4 season, the Orange Bowl, and maybe they thought they had arrived more than they really had. They did, of course, have some fantastic players, but they were replacing some big-time skill guys that are in the NFL now. This team is not really doing that. They lost a couple of receivers to the NFL, but they brought in some NFL-type receivers to replace them that already have a lot of experience. So that's a fair trade in many respects. But the chip these guys have after losing 4 in a row and the way that they lost, and they know, man, we were so close here, we were so close there. Plus, the fact that Mack Brown has hammered in this thing about finishing, they never should have been in that situation against App State. They had them by 3 touchdowns going in the 4th quarter. Finish them off. They had Georgia Tech 17-0. Finish them off. You know, there were some other they were up 10 the 4th quarter against Oregon in the Holiday Bowl. Finish them off. So for a club that has a lot of good parts and a lot of experience and a lot of leadership and some supremely high-end talent, they've got this nasty disposition, this chip, because I think the focus is as much on what they didn't do well, maybe even more so than what they did do well, what they can do. And that fueled together, I think, gives them a mojo that I have not seen in this program for a while. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The final thing, they think they're going to be really good. They know all these things that I've outlined. They're well aware of it, and they openly talk about it. But they also think they're going to be really good, not just the players, but the staff. They think they have a chance to have a really, really good season. They should be able to deal with some attrition. They have a lot of experience to get them through some tough times. They have terrific leadership that will get them through tough times. And there's an accountability factor, I think, in the locker room now that is greater than they've had since Mac Brown came back, and that's important. There is a standard of, well, this is how we do it, and you better come along for the ride, or you're not getting on the field. All that stuff, all those intangibles have been elevated, and they know it, and they expect to be better. This is a club coming off a 9-win season in which they won the Coastal Division title, and they're ticked off, and they feel like they have a lot to prove, and they know that they can prove it. They're saying, look, we've got to be X, Y, and Z better than a year ago. We know we're going to do it. I think the fact that they had a lot of warts last year and still won 9 games is a reason to feel confidence. But it's not just I think we're going to be really good. It's an I know we're going to be really good mentality that this group has. And it is permeated throughout the program, players and the staff. And I imagine the student managers that deal with the equipment and the water, and the water and towels and all that stuff, I bet they think the same thing as well. Now, they got to go out in the field now and prove it. They got a tough schedule, a really difficult first month, and a very challenging opener. We'll see if all these things that I've outlined here in this podcast play themselves out beginning Saturday night. Thanks again to Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports, for sponsoring us. You will hear their name a lot this football season. Make sure you go to underdogfantasy.com and check them out. Make sure you like this video if you think the Tar Heels vibe is the vibe you have about them. Even if you don't and you want that to be the case, go ahead and click like. Share the video with your Carolina friends. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so you get updates every time we upload a video, and we always do. Probably the next time you hear from me will be from Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte after the game, doing my 3 things with Jacob Turner. So I'm looking forward to that. Can't wait to see what this team's all about, guys. We need intel, and games are intel. Thanks for stopping by.